Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal. Ed, UFC pay-per-view 310 weekend is approaching. How is it going on the East Coast, my friend?
It's fucking ice cold, but hopefully everybody had a good Thanksgiving. We took off last week for the holiday. We're gonna get hit with a couple of like midweek holidays, so I think we probably only have one more podcast to do before that time comes. But hopefully everybody had a good Thanksgiving, and we're entering the this is the last pay-per-view of 2024. What a wacky year it's been. And if I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I answer a lot of questions on Quora. And one of the questions I got about UFC 310 was, does this card seem like it's designed for the hardcore fans? And in my mind, I was like, you know what? I don't know if it's because of the Asakura thing, but I feel like the answer is yes. I mean, you're going to this one. I feel like the answer to that question is yes, it is.
I think it's a rare mix, if I'm being honest. Because really it's just the main event, and initially the main event was the Muhammad and Shakmanov fight that got shuffled around, but initially it was Diaz was on it. So you talk about hardcore. Yeah, I feel like this is kind of for the old school fans who are used to kind of a stacked card with every fight having somebody that they know in it.
Like but an old box card, yeah.
But in a sense, I also think that's kind of the casual card too, because it's a lot of good fighters that you would see watching main events and watching, the Gons, if you catch the main fights of most of the events, or at least like the main cards of a lot of the events, then it a bit is casual because you know these guys. You don't have to deep dive into some Australian underground fight league or something to find out who these guys are.
I mean, and then when we look at when we do our picks in a bit, I mean, and we see the matchups, I think you'll kind of feel that vibe, especially because there's a couple of fights that are like, I feel like they're not. Maybe I'm not seeing the chatter because all the algorithms and stuff have changed since certain things happen in the world. But I just we knew we were doing this week tonight, and as I was writing up my notes to do our picks later, I'm looking at the matchups and I'm like, yeah, man, this is like an OG, like I'm feeling this card because it feels like an old school Fox card. I feel like I feel like getting my friends in the living room and watching it and just having a few beers. It's just one of those, like a pride.
No, that's what level. I said. It makes it easy because every fight draws you in a little bit. At least draws me in, and we're a little more hardcore than the average fan, I'd say, but neither of us are anymore are too crazy, but I do think that this card brings it, and that's why I was excited to buy tickets for it. Even with the main, the crazy thing is that you had Suarez versus Jinroba canceled, you had Muhammad versus Rakhmonov canceled, you had Vincent Luque versus Nick Diaz canceled, and yet you still. You got to give credit where credit's due. Now they're going out on a limb with this main event. I don't think they're going to sell 1 trillion pay-per-views. It's probably not going to be. I know ticket sales are a little bit slower than normal.
Well, it's the time of year too. I mean, people's pockets are strapped. It's a December card and holidays and travel for other things. It's something that I don't know. I'll tell you one thing I do like that they're doing. I mean, they got I guess that's what there was a few months ago. The Dana White had shared a picture with him and Sakaki Bara together, and I guess that's what they talked about, getting some footage together to help push their boy Asukara, because I do like that they've been pushing him. Not just the UFC has been sharing a lot of his highlights from Ryzen, but even ESPN MMA has been, like, they're uploading his fights on their YouTube channel, and I'm just like, it's something that we were kind of like wondering when Asukara made the announcement at a Rising event. We were kind of like, how come the UFC isn't making this announcement? And I guess their marketing machine is top notch, and the fact that they're doing it within the last 10 days, I think, says something too about where the sport is going. I like it a lot.
But I think a lot of people are going to tune into the fights, not really like, because I would say that the casual fan probably isn't buying an event ticket necessarily for Asakura versus Pantoja, but I think those who sit down and when you say, like you said, those who sit down and start watching it, if you don't know the fight card ahead of time, every fight that comes on the screen, I think you're gonna go, wow, like, okay, cool. I mean, you got everything. We talk about the prelims. That's the prelims alone would be one of the best fight night cards of the year. But Chase Super Clay Guida, fun fight. I mean, that's an early prelim. You got the young kid. Turns out it's the biggest age gap in UFC history, 17 years. So that's kind of a cool little fact. Chiesa versus Max Griffin's a good competitive fight by two, veterans of the sport. And it just continues with that. I mean, the fact
that the Weidman Anders fight that was supposed to be here in the Garden. This is the fight that because was it Anders? He was originally supposed to. He was sick for that. He got sick that day of, if you remember. So they just moved that to this moving it to this card. I mean, it sucks that he's got to go to Vegas for it now, but I don't think he hates that either. I mean, right now it's fucking freezing over here. I'd rather be in Vegas for anything right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the end of the world. These guys fly pretty well, and I'm sure Weidman's taken care of. But former multiple time champion, defended the belt multiple times. Seeing him on the undercard, I mean, one of my favorite fighters of all time. It's been a rough last 10 years, but it was the first couple years of his run was some of the most fun I ever had in the MMA sphere. So I look forward to that, and then Vincent Luque stays on the card against Themba Gorimbo. And Aljamain Sterling, another former champion's on the prelims.
Yeah, which is a head scratcher that he's on the prelims and not on the main card. But the number 5 versus number 9 of featherweight, former champion. But it's on ESPN too, though. I mean, honestly, that's exposure wise. I think that's better for him to get him on. Most people that have regular whatever, you can go to a bar and that'll be on ESPN too. You don't need to have this stupid ass ESPN Plus app or I'm not a fan of this era. I can't wait for 2025 see what the UFC does with their broadcasting deal. But it should be a good time. It should be a good it's a really good card. I feel like the hype is not there for it but as we know, UFC fans it'll probably get there by Thursday.
Oh yeah, it'll be Vegas. It'll be fight week, and when it's all said and done, the arena will be basically full, and everybody it'll be treated like any other pay-per-view, which it is. And like I said, I think it's gonna be one of those occasions where, for me, it's tougher because there's not gonna be a lot of bathroom breaks. Let's just say that these fights are all gonna be good. The last few years, I've been able to find a couple fights where I'll just be straight up, I don't care about, and I'll go walk around the arena and
go say hi to some people.
You kind of just peep the scene out, kind of just see who's there to be seen and stuff like that. And this event, I'm not really seeing that. Even the heavyweight banger to start the card off is right up my playbook as one of the rare still heavyweight MMA fans in the world today. But then we jump to the main card, and I feel like again, mentioned the word banger. It starts off with a heavyweight banger, and I don't know if you could put together a fight to open up the main card that pretty much guarantees fireworks any more than Nate Landwehr and Hody Choi, the Korean Superboy.
Before we get into that, somebody just dropped because Nick Diaz has been popping up in the news, and Michael just chimed in and asked, love to hear any thoughts on any current Nick Diaz opinions. Honestly, man, if the guy's going through stuff, I don't like to if people have demons that they're facing, and unfortunately because of who they are, they get in the public eye. I just hope that they fix whatever's bothering them, especially when it comes to the Diaz brothers. The guys, I've always looked at them both as modern day samurai, and if other things have there's a lot of good and evil in the world that can creep into someone's life, and if like the substance abuses creeped into Nick's life, I just hope folks help him out the way that he needs to get helped out. If that's the case for him, but I don't. That's not something I even like to get into unless if I spoke to them, maybe I would. Like if I got to hear something from the horse's mouth, and maybe I would write something to try to help them out, as I've done in the past with other fighters when I talk to them about stuff. But That's their business, and I just hope for the best for whatever they're going through. I hope they pull themselves out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I really can't add much
Mm-hmm.
on to it. Wish him all the well. Nick's universally pretty much loved among all MMA fans.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that there's enough people out there willing to help him if he needs the help, or maybe
like his guillotine setup is one that you're starting to see more and more of now. And the video is like 12 years old. I shared it with SureDog, the folks at SureDog, and on social media. Every time I see somebody do that guillotine setup because he has this thing where most, like back in the day when people were learning guillotines, they were just scooping up the chin strap and trying to squeeze for life. And he does this thing where he kind of like what was the other guy that Mackenzie whatever his name was, the Canadian
Mackenzie
dude.
teen.
Yeah. It's similar to that, but he would just make a fist, and you could see Nate do it a lot. He would make a fist and just press it into the carotid of the person he was choking, and you see a lot of people doing that now. There's other fighters that have those quick tap guillotines you see now. That's what they're doing. And he did it. I mean, in my opinion, he's the first person I saw do it, so he did it first. So Diaz brothers definitely, they're pioneers in the game, and they're synonymous, like the way the Gracies are synonymous with jiu-jitsu. I would say for fighting and MMA, the Diaz brothers are the same. So yeah.
And when history's written, the Nevada State Athletic Commission and the California Commission, who threw the book at him over a marijuana charge 7-8 years ago, basically ended his career. That's something that those people should have to live with for making a decision over something as petty as weed in whatever it was, 2015
that's legal now,
or whatever it was. Yeah, now it's not even tested for in their testing. So I wish him all the best. I hope the UFC doesn't book him in any more fights until if he ever gets cleaned up. And I don't know, man. I feel like this area of social media, I know that those guys were never wanted to be front and center and talk a lot, but my God, like a 209 podcast with the two brothers seems like it would be gold. You know what I mean? It seems like the UFC could do something to kind of, I don't know. Maybe they're obviously stubborn dudes too, but at the same time, it would be cool to see the UFC step in and figure out a way to interject something else into his life that can maybe give him a little more life and a little more enjoyment, and put some money in his pocket to help recoup. I'm sure he did well when time was well, but it was a different era. And I mean, if he was in his prime today, he'd be Max Holloway, and he'd be making millions of dollars. He'd be the BMF today. You know what I mean? So sure. That's what he was. So all the best to him. Thanks for the question, Michael. And just hope the best for him. Nothing more than that.
Yeah. So I guess we should get into this card. I mean, it's one that as I was doing my notes, I mean, look at the before we even get into the main card. I mean, Dominic Reyes and Anthony Smith are the featured ESPN2 bout. I mean, this fucking card is just shit. I know I don't usually curse on this, but I'm like, the more I look at this card, I mean, and this is the one that you kind of got you got in there early for too when you got the tickets, right?
Yeah, I bought them early. I took a hit, and then when Mama got hurt, I got a little money kicked back to me. So it all worked out. Happy with my seats, and I'm happy to look forward to this fight. It's like I mean, that first fight on that card puts a huge smile on my face. I just can't imagine that not being utter chaos. I mean, Troy's already in the Hall of Fame with Swanson for a fight of the decade, fight of the all time. So when you put him and the train, Nate the Train in there, I was there when Landier fought Onama on the Cruz Vera card, and that was awesome. That was one fight where some people who hadn't been to a live UFC in a while I was with were kind of like, holy shit, this is why this is really fun. So I just think that this fight's crazy. I'm gonna go with the Train to win because he's been more active, but but he takes a lot of damage, and Hodu Choi is fucking awesome. So I mean I like it's a coin flip, but if this isn't a fight of the night candidate, then I'll be shocked. I mean, to me, this is funny to be the fight of the night.
I think that's what I have in my notes too for this fight. Let me check really quick because I mean, I mean, we're already on the same page with picking Landwehr against Chu Duho, but it's something Choi Duho, sorry, but it's something that I'm just like, man. Again, these are these fights that I'm like, how come we're not hearing enough about them? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this fight should be talked about more, and it's not.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, I think that's just a victim of the oversaturation. You just don't have time to go too deep into cards. That's why these ones will sneak up on you every once in a while. I feel like we had a fight night like this not too long ago where it was like, it might have been the one with the Weidman. I don't know, that was a live show, but I think it was even an Apex one where every once in a while they'll sneak up on you because you just don't expect it. But I mean, that to open the main card right there.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a significant
fun.
age difference, and I just think Landwehr has a durability and experience to.
I mean, Troy had to go do his military duties in Korea, so he lost a little bit of time at a prime point of his career. But I mean, he's coming off of a knockout win too, so anything's possible. I just think that this is one that you will not want to miss, and I'd honestly be surprised if it went more than 2 rounds. I think I shouldn't say that because they're both durable as hell, but I think they're coming out swinging. I think they're both on a pay-per-view for the first time in a while, and this is going to be fun.
Yeah, they're definitely probably getting a bonus out of this fight. Interesting one here: Bryce Mitchell versus Crone Gracie, featherweight bout.
I think this is a way to get Gracie out of the UFC. Essentially, I think they want him. He'll basically get squashed by Mitchell, and they'll cut him. I didn't want to say it too much earlier, but I wonder if there's something with Sterling and stuff going on down there too. I know with Dutch Village and Champion, they might have a little more favor, but I hope that there's not some kind of Arlovsky or some kind of other stuff where we're just going to drown somebody on the prelims, and then when they lose to an undefeated fighter, build off their name and then cut them. A loss by Weidman could be his last fight. Also, I could see some trimming if certain things happen, but on the main card here, I definitely think Crone Gracie, who we both watched as a baby on the Choke documentary, who's fighting in the UFC. I've seen him fight live before. For me, it's special to get to see a Gracie fight live, no matter who it is, because it's just awesome in my mind, and I don't expect him to win. I think Mitchell's going to crush him. But there is always that. The Gracie name on the billboard's awesome to see. And you're always that like submission away from the nostalgia.
Exactly, and that's the thing. So that's what I feel like is because I know Bryce Mitchell. They're just sharing out on UFC socials his twister finish. So. I mean, and Bryce Mitchell, we know he's a little special himself when it comes to his mentality. So does he try to test his grappling against someone like Crone and put himself in danger of getting submitted, or does he remember that this is MMA and not jiu-jitsu, and he can just use his MMA experience to win this fight? That's where I think we have to see what Bryce does. I mean, because it's MMA, I'm picking Mitchell to win. But I mean, again, if he tries to turning it into a grappling match to see if his MMA grappling is better than Crone's like straight jiu-jitsu grappling, I think he's going to be making a big mistake. But I got Mitchell picked as well.
The other factor is that the last time he fought, I was there, and the last thing I saw him was him seizing out in the ring after Josh Emmett crushed his skull.
I remember that, yeah.
A scary moment, but I wonder what the bounce back is. I mean, he's Bryce Mitchell. We see him on these podcasts. We see his little video clips and stuff, but that kid's got to take a toll on you. So I think this is a good matchup for him in a sense that he's not fighting, somebody who's probably going to break his orbital, but at the same time, you bring up a good point. If he goes down to the ground and gets a little sloppy, Hickson's son wouldn't be the one I'd want to get sloppy with.
Because if he's got that bravado from the his upbringing and the whole character that he puts out there, maybe he wants to be the guy that is like, maybe he wants to test himself and say, I tapped out of Gracie, like he's trying to get that Sakuraba rep. You never know what's going through these guys. They're fighters after all, and the glory of something in a match means something to these guys. It's why Michael Chandler keeps fighting, even though he catches an ass whooping half the time and still manages to, sometimes the what do they call the man in the arena? The guy, the cheer of the crowd, the bloodthirst, whatever you want to call it, makes him do things, different. But yeah, I mean, we both got Mitchell just because it's an MMA fight, and
he's a better fighter. Hopefully we don't see a bunch of butt scooting and some hopefully we get an aggressive Gracie and we don't get some kind of shenanigans that unfortunately have kind of come with the family name for some of their events too. So but I don't see a decision there. So I think we're right off the bat. I think we're off with two exciting fights that's going to keep the crowd going. And then you bring in the heavyweights, a rematch, Cyril Gane, Alexander Volkov, the former Bellator champion versus
Bellator
the former
M1 champ.
interim. First fight Gane took him easily, won a decision. Pretty much, won every round basically. I'm pulling for Volkov hard. Met Volkov when he was in Bellator.
So far we're the same.
Performance against John Jones, I found pathetic. I mean, straight up, like he couldn't have done. I wouldn't have done worse than Gane. He was tapping out in 30 seconds. So to me that's pretty rough, dude. Like, title fight loss in 30 seconds to a guillotine choke. It's not like he got caught in a friggin', flying armbar or some crazy nonsense. He got caught with day one submission in a heavyweight championship fight. I'm going with Volkov. Cheering wise, I can't not pick Gane based off what I saw in the first fight. I'm going to take Gane to win a decision in this fight. But I would pull in for Volkov, and I hope he adjusts and is just more aggressive. I think that's really what it is. And I mean, maybe seeing Gane lose as easily as it looked to John Jones might be enough to inspire a guy to kind of, it takes off a little of the mystique, a little of the worry. And he's been in the ring with him for 5 rounds.
So the Jones loss, I think is something worth mentioning because I never even thought about it until I was doing my notes for this podcast. Guys when they fight Jones and lose, it's almost like what we say about Justin Gaethje. I don't want to say as heavy, but I feel like when you lose, when you make it to Jones and then you lose. And then you start fighting again. Those guys aren't the same. I mean, when you look at Dominic Reyes and Anthony Smith, they rose to Jones, fought him, and then they afterwards. So I feel like that's might happen with Gane as well. So I'm actually picking Volkov for that reason, on top of the fanboy reason. So I just wanted to add that in there because I made the notes earlier today, and that was something that as I was looking at the history, I was like, you know what? I never even thought about it before. Like the judge of John Jones has like a Justin Gaethje-esque effect on fighters where they're not the same after they fight him. Not in a damage sense, just maybe a confidence thing kind of messes with their fighting spirit. So that's why I'm picking Volkov in this one.
God, I was front row when Volkov fought Mighty Mo in Bellator, and he had knocked him out with a head kick. I'll never forget the sound. And Mighty Mo, one of the big K1 legends, just falling right in front of him. I mean, back in the day when you were close to the cage, when you were fun. So, man, I hope Volkov wins because it's fresh blood. I don't think Jones is fighting either one of these guys at any time. But eventually Aspinall, maybe Volkov or Gane, either one of them makes a good fight. But I'm gonna be cheering hard for Volkov, man. I'd like to see it, but I'll go with the guy who won the first fight. Just out of respect.
And it'd be cool for a Bellator champ to come close to, closer to getting a UFC title.
Especially considering PFL is eating up Bellator more by canceling their New Year's Eve event now too. So just throw that in there as
I was gonna. I was gonna talk about it when we started the podcast, but they had their event over the weekend. Who the fuck watched it on Black Friday? I guess the people that were making money off of it. I'm personally so disgusted with especially after Patchy Mix and Pitbull and all those people voicing and the fighters that I talk to that are also concerned. Like they got to get their shit together. They got to get their shit together in 2025. I don't care what kind of Saudi money you have or whatever. I mean, release these guys. If you're not going to give them fights, then release them. It's because fighting life is not as long as it seems.
I I mean, we're not far from the conversation, is Don Davis the worst promoter in the history of fight sports? But we'll have that somewhere down the line here.
Yeah. Well, for our year-end podcast, maybe we'll yeah.
Anyways,
let's stick with this train. This fight right here, Shavkat Rama. Is this fight getting the? I mean, from your point of view, is this fight getting the love that it should too? There's another one that I'm just like.
I feel like there's some hype on this one. I see
Okay.
a lot of somebody's undefeated versus undefeated, and I'm not seeing it maybe from the UFC, but I'm seeing it from like some hardcore fans that are like, it reminds them of the. We don't, like Machida, Rashad Evans. We don't get a whole lot of undefeated versus undefeated kind of fights. So,
yeah, somebody's getting a loss on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, in theory, I guess you could have a draw or so no contest, but yeah, it's a good fight. It's two up and comers that are both essentially title contenders. I mean, I don't think if either one of these guys was fighting Muhammad in the main event, anybody would be complaining. I'm going to go with Shavkat Rakhmonov. 18 wins, 18 finishes, hard to ignore. I do think Gary has a path to victory and a slow kind of kick his legs out and kind of just pedal around the ring and pick your shots. I think there is a pathway to a boring win for Gary, but 18-0, 18 finishes is something that I like. He's pretty much winning at life. He's got Lawrence Sanko. He's 18-0. I mean, I feel like the world's in his hands right now, and I see him winning this fight and eventually getting that title fight early next year, hopefully.
Yeah, and I just feel like because he's just I mean, there's something like he's got like a Fedor vibe to him where he comes, he fights, he wins, he doesn't talk a lot of shit, he doesn't do anything funny on social media. The stuff with the hat and the eagle, that's a cultural thing. That's not goofball shit. He's just a straight up
assassin.
And the UFC doesn't seem to like that. Like they probably want him to be all fuckery and fuck about and having OnlyFans and all that stuff. Machado's that guy, but not Shavkat. And I feel like I want him to win. I haven't picked to win just because he's the guy that it'll be like to have a champion that just says very little, fights, wins, and keeps on winning, and maybe get a title. That's like Fedor's running in Pride. I want to see something like that again, and I think this guy can do that here. And I feel like that's why the UFC is not rushing him to a title shot so easily, because they're trying to curtail him, because they're like, oh, he's not marketable. Doesn't have. But neither was Alex Pereira. Look at him now. All he does is fight. I mean,
he was in the title fight. If Muhammad didn't hurt his foot, he would be getting the title shot. I think. I think that. I agree with you. The UFC doesn't necessarily like that because we're in a world now of social media and TikTok, and it's kind of the same reason why I think Gary gets a little bit of a bad rap, if I'm being honest. I know a lot of people have these issues with his family situation, all that other shit that nobody would have known about 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Gary would have just been this killer who's from Ireland that's 15-0. Like I wouldn't have known what his wife's opinion on anything was. I don't even care today. But I wouldn't have even known he's probably married. I mean, like, you just didn't know that thing. You didn't know what friggin', other than Randy Couture, I suppose, who seemed to have a lot of family things going on during those 20 years. But I'm going with Rakhmonov. Either one of these guys, I think, is going to be a fun career to watch. And honestly, I don't think this is the last time we see these guys fight. It just seems like these guys clash another 7-8 fights down the line for and maybe even sooner, depending on how things unfold. I mean, if you get a banger of a fight night, Rakhmonov wins, let's say, a split decision back and forth battle, then he goes on to fight Muhammad. I don't know why you wouldn't just rematch Gary. I mean, even if Gary didn't fight anybody else, honestly, like if we get a razor close thing, I can see a quick turnaround rematch, even off a loss for the title. And I don't think anybody would have a problem with it if they both come out there and leave it out there. But like I said, I think the pathway for Gary, short of landing some kind of random shot that knocks him out, is a slow kind of ugly win. And I think this fight goes to decision. I don't think we're going to see it finish.
Oh, fight. Yeah.
I I think both guys.
And it's another one that could probably be fight of the night too.
It could be. Although, we'll see if Rachmanov's streak ends, but I think a finish is hard. Although a 5-round fight, if he's able to impose his will, I mean, obviously any human's going to wilt by the 20-minute mark or something, and there's going to be openings to try to finish something. But I think it's a good fight, man. It's a fun fight. I know a lot of people are excited about it. I think hardcore casuals, everybody can be excited about two undefeated dudes who have been on the radar for a couple years now, facing off.
Oh, look, Antoine. I haven't heard from him in a while. Yes, we had a great Thanksgiving. Thanks for tuning in, Antoine, and asking.
Keep doing your thing, Antoine. Keep doing your thing out there, man, with the NBA and the Hawks and the WNBA stuff. You're hustling, man. Keep doing your thing. Main event time. Pantoja, Asakura, Ryzen.
These odds are fluctuating a lot. I mean, look, they put 0-0. They're not putting his Ryzen record in there, but I mean, the guy's obviously has fights. He wouldn't be fighting Pantoja if he didn't have any fights. He's a plus 230 underdog. He was plus 220 earlier. Bovada has, these are from DraftKings odds, and Bovada had him at plus 220. DraftKings is plus 230, minus 285. What was Bovada? Bovada had him at a minus 270 for Pantoja. I like those odds. I think they're fair. And I kind of agree with them because there's a lot against Asukara. He's fighting in a cage. He's coming to the UFC. He's the outsider coming in. Pantoja's the got seniority, and then obviously on a win. He doesn't have to deal. He's been through the UFC experience. This is Asukara's first. There's a lot of what ifs for Asukara on this fight, man. But boy,
UFC basically has him as an amoeba out there. 0 inches tall, no reach. Can't even put his record in there. I mean, can we?
He's LB pounds. That's his weight. Yeah, 0. Yeah, wow. UFC.com, $4 billion company. They couldn't cut and paste off of Tapology.
Okay, here. Pulling hard for Asakura. I think Pantoja wins. I hate to say it. I think he does. I think he wins this fight 3-4 round submission TKO. I think he probably imposes as well with some wrestling and kind of, I hopefully we get some good sprawl and brawl out of Asakura early, and it opens up some potential for some heavy aggression on his part, and who knows, maybe even pick up the win, but I got to go with Pantoja, man. He's just too solid, and he's just solid. That's really it.
Yuri with the Asakura by weightlessness.
Well, there it is.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think everything that I mentioned that is against Asakura is why Pantoja can win. However, because I love Japanese MMA. I love that he's here. I love that the UFC is kind of, I mean, even though it's not on their website, through their social media marketing, at least they're recognizing his accomplishments from Japan and at Ryzen and all the stuff that they're putting up. I mean, you guys got to remember, for those listening to the podcast that don't know, he held the title over there and he relinquished it to come to the UFC. So this is a champ versus champ fight. Maybe not the same weight class, but it's definitely a champ versus champ, and something that is not being, highlighted enough, because I know the UFC, for some reason, they get fucking butthurt when you mention other promotions because they want to be the only guy in town. But obviously you can't do that with this guy. And I think if you did, you'd probably have a little bit more trending social medias. But out of my pure fanboy fandom for Ryzen and Asukara, I want him to win. I want him to win. That's it. I'm going to leave it at that. I want him to win, and I hope he does, because if he does, then a lot of people are going to be like, what the? Wait a minute. There's more than fighters out there in the world and outside of the UFC? I mean, it'd be a nice...
and I want to hold out hope that this opens up the door for maybe some fighter swaps, as far as why not? If the UFC can't book some of these guys, I'm not saying send their champions to Ryzen, but why can't you send some of these under prelim guys out there to kind of help them fill out some of their cards and
get
help
some
develop
fights
some and then I mean, I don't get why you wouldn't try to. UFC does their thing; they make a ton of money. I'm not gonna preach on that, but yeah, good fight card.
Yeah.
A lot going on.
Really quick, since we're talking about Rising in Japan, on the December 30th, that Ryan Garcia versus Rukia Anpo like exhibition. It's a co-promotion between Ryzen and Fanmio, which I think Floyd Mayweather is part of.
No, that was that debacle with the Masvidal and Diaz, where they both claim they didn't get paid. So I'm kind of surprised they're using Fanmio, but it might have something to do with that's the company that put that fight on. That's the company that Diaz supposedly
that's right. Yeah. But anyway, it's Fanmio and Ryzen are co-promoting this event on December 30th, and it's they're going to have the boxing match, but they're going to actually have some MMA on the card too. So the fact that Ryzen is still doing co-promotions after they did stuff with Bellator, I think it's worth mentioning.
Did you see the announcement that it's going to be 13 hours long and there's 25 fights and it starts at 10 a.m. in Japan and runs till midnight?
Hey, for them, that's the thing.
I will be watching all 13 hours.
That's what I was going to say. Like somebody else tried to do that on Black Friday and it didn't go well, but.
Well, yeah, you don't do it on
Black
leave that
Friday. For next week.
Do it on New Year's Eve for the New Year's Eve.
Yeah, when you can't. Yeah, like what the fuck else are you gonna do on New Year's Eve? You need something. New Year's Eve is kind of like you need something to do, whereas people are busy on Black Friday, out and about and traveling.
It's tradition. I have a New Year's Eve tradition of watching Japanese MMA.
Yeah.
I have no tradition of waking up on Black Friday and watching some fights from Saudi Arabia. I just don't. So I mean, and I'm not proud to say I didn't see any of the fights, but I don't even know who won the fights. I care so little about PFL, and I've never cared. I cared more about the Yama pit fighting than I do about this. Like what they're doing over there is criminal. Anyways, couple other things of notes. We mentioned that Rise's New Year's Eve is going to be epic. We'll get to that. Hopefully, we have a show where we can at least talk about some of that at some point by the end of the year. UFC 311 tickets go on sale via fan club sale tomorrow morning. Still no official main event, although I'm hearing rumors that the Armin Saryukian and Islam Makhachev fight will be made official, hopefully at a press conference later this week. Slap fighting is Friday. I will take my whooping and say that I'm going to that. I may not be the only person also that will be going to that. What else? There was some other I think that was about it. Shout out to our boy Nolan King, who just happens to be staying at a Las Vegas hotel this weekend that has a Krispy Kreme in it. So hopefully there will be
that's probably on purpose. Yeah. They probably built the Krispy. They're like, Nolan King's coming. We got to get a Krispy Kreme in here.
So hopefully run into our guys out there. Love to say hi to Nolan. That's always a pleasure. James Lynch, I don't know if he's making it out there, but any of those guys who have been friends of the show, it's always fun to see. It's UFC fight week.
This is always nice to hear. Look at Antoine. I got to read this just because I love hearing this shit. On a side note, Antoine Willis says, I started watching The Sopranos for the first time because I was born in 99 and missed. The more I watch the show, the more Tony reminds me of Dana. I don't know if I see that. I don't know if I can make that connection. Dana White and Tony Soprano? I mean, as a guy from Jersey that watches I don't feel it.
He does rough his wife up a little bit, though, right?
Maybe that.
I'd have to go back and rewatch The Sopranos. It was a great show, but that was.
Michael is asking, what does Ryzen have planned? We're going to get into it, but they have the Ryzen.
It's called Ryzen Decade.
Yeah.
Right now, it's scheduled for 13 hours. 20 or 25 fights.
Sakuraga's kid is on the card against
several boxing matches.
Yeah.
MMA, kickboxing. It basically is going to be a fight extravaganza day.
Yeah.
The last time
it's kind of their thing.
The last time there was anything like this was in 2012, I think, and it was Dream and Glory, and they put together like a 9-10 hour New Year's Eve day that had a 16-man tournament.
Even when they did the Bellator versus Ryzen thing, that was kind of like a two-parter, wasn't it? Like it was like half the card was like
they did a Bellator event the night before, and then they had the Ryzen
fight
the night after, which I thought we were gonna, when you looked at the Bellator schedule as of 7 a.m. this morning.
Oh God.
You thought that there, you knew it wasn't going to happen because it's 3 weeks away and nobody knows about it. But so it'll be a New Year's Eve extravaganza. I'm not sure how it'll be broadcast, other than using the Ryzen TV now, which has been great for the last couple of events that I've watched. So bunch going on. Hopefully get some good photos, get to meet some people this weekend, and share some good stories next week. Until then, fans can follow the show at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast to Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. And, and thanks for listening, everybody. Thank you for the comments, and have a good night.
See where our hearts lie.